There's a saying in permaculture that the problem is the solution. And here we are on a job site that really exemplifies that. We're in Spicewood, Texas. This is by far the steepest hillside that we've ever worked on. And there were a lot of challenges with this one, but we just kept finding really creative ways to solve them. Lots of credit to Chris and Adam, who designed and did the project with the help of our whole team. A lot of people came together with a lot of creativity to make this one happen, and we're super stoked to show you guys what's going on here.
This video is made possible by our patrons. Their support allows us to continue to share our educational resources, knowledge, and make these videos for you to enjoy. Check out the link below to learn how you can access exclusive content and support the work we do.
So I really love this space. I love how it turned out, and I know that it was a process to get to this that was sort of evolving, and it wasn't all a perfectly formed idea. So can you tell us a little bit about the story of how we ended up with this beautiful hardscape here?
Yeah, so this was all a super steep eroded hillside. You could barely walk on it. You fell off of it multiple times. It was just a cliff. You know, some of them you had to kind of shimmy like this to get around this hillside. And they wanted, basically what can we do here? And so first, of course, we were like, well, let's harvest all the water on the site, including the roof. And so we started with this rain tank. 60,000 gallon rain tank that turned into a beautiful patio as well. It's a concrete rain tank that was built underground, or partially underground, that now feeds all of the irrigation here. And so now all of our irrigation is attached to this. And then that led into, we had a massive amount of soil that came out of this hole that then we could bolster some of the steeper cliffy sides and build actual conservation terraces and berms and swales that then we overlaid with our mineral mix and our syntropic agroforestry system on top of those. So now we have a very rich, robust system that's just harvesting a massive amount of water, everything off of the roof as well as everything off of the hillside.
And I know that we always feel like people should just install rain tanks because it's a good idea, right? And like your plants prefer it, but in this case, it was actually a reaction to the neighborhood water restrictions, is that right? Are they on like a shared well or some sort of a like municipal water system?
This is all municipal water, so they were only allowed to water 1 day a week for a certain amount of time. So it just gave them a lot of sovereignty and freedom to do as they desired. And it was right in the middle of the COVID realm, so everyone was a little concerned and they wanted to grow as much food and medicine. They're very interested in herbs, so we just planted as many fruit and nut trees as possible and then overseeded with as many medicinals on top of that while giving them their own sovereign water source.
So Adam, was it your idea to build this custom pergola here on top of the rain tank?
You know, luckily this client is very creative, was always bringing out magazine pictures and Pinterest, which is perfect. We just got to take her vision and just build exactly what she had envisioned. And so now we have multiple functions. We got our rain tank, we got our beautiful patio, gathering area. We also have swings that attach to this for just, the joy and fun to take in this beautiful view looking over Lake Travis.
I love how there's always a breeze in places like this. So even on a hot day, there's a breeze and there's less mosquitoes usually when there's a breeze here. And I can tell you can hang swings as well. I mean, that's just amazing. What a cool design. I love how this came out.
Yeah.
So as I understand it, we're actually deep in enemy HOA territory where
we are a very specific HOA here.
So they don't allow rain tanks, they don't allow
they don't allow above ground aluminum galvanized rain tanks or poly tanks. And so when we started looking down the rain tank option, we had to disguise it and build it halfway underground, out of concrete, and then mason the outside, put a porch on top. So if you don't know what you're looking at, you just think it's a beautiful porch, but it happens to also be a 60,000 gallon rain tank. So there's always some way to navigate those HOAs creatively, as long as you just say, yep, thank you for telling me the information I needed, and now I'm gonna go back and create a creative strategy to come around what you have given me.
Because the HOA isn't actually against you catching your rainwater, they're against things that are gonna bring down property value. So you have to understand their perspective of, that's unsightly, we feel like it's gonna bring down our property value, even if you and I might disagree, because water resilience is valuable. And then you have to say, okay, cool, I can honor that and also here's how I'm going to get done what I want to get done.
Absolutely. It's all about like seeking understanding of where these guidelines are coming from, and then like addressing the root of the, you and I are on the same page, and so let's use this strategy to achieve it. So this is our 3-bay composter, but we were trying to make it as user-friendly as possible. So you're not constantly pulling material out, swishing it in bins. So underneath each bin is a PVC pipe with holes drilled in it, and it's attached to this little bouncy castle blower that's then attached to a timer. So once this bin gets full and they just keep it a little bit moist, then the pump will turn on every hour for 1 minute. And it'll do that for 1 month, and then the entire pile will shrink down, and then it's done. And then we just leave it for 1 more month so that it can stabilize and we can get more fungal movement throughout the pile, and then it's ready to go shift out and use somewhere. So you're not having to move it and do so much physical activity. So with a little, $60 bouncy castle pump and a timer, it makes the whole system very user-friendly and takes out a lot of that legwork that we're happy to do, but not everybody else is.
I'm not that happy to do it.
If you don't have to do it, we can put that energy towards something else.
But the other thing is this speeds up. Even if you're turning your compost, it could take 4, 5, 6 months to finish. What I'm hearing from you is this can be finished in 2 months.
Yeah, so once it's full, it's just 1 month of aeration. That really supercharges the bacterial breakdown, and then 1 month of static pile sitting, which encourages all the fungus, and then it's done.
And I see we've got hinges on the top here, and then you've also got so that you can open up the whole front of it. You just unlock all of those and you pull the whole front off.
Exactly.
Nice. So that way you can get it out more easily. You don't have to go in from the top, right?
Exactly. Just trying to make it as ergonomic for whatever physicality of person is going to be working with this.
And then I can also see that you guys have done a good job of making this rodent proof, because that's one of the other things that can happen is, rodents can start getting in there, and then that can become a problem of its own. So nice. I like it.
Yep. One of the biggest challenges of this site, as we mentioned, was just access. Everything was incredibly steep, and so there wasn't a way to get down to this lower area of their property. And so all of these rocks had just tumbled down the hillside, kind of rock slide over time. And so we just readjusted them, filled this with decomposed granite, placed them in order, so now we have this lovely little natural stone staircase.
And one of the higher things up on the Regenerative scale of permanence, or Keyline scale of permanence that the Regenerations use for design, is access. Because if you can't access it, you can't manage it. And a lot of times that gets left out. We just want to pack everything full of productive systems, and we forget about our access ways.
And in particular, their propane is right down here. So the poor propane guy had to scale down this hillside every time that he came to resupply them. So it just helps with everybody. So since this berm is closest to their home, we wanted to make it beautiful and aesthetically pleasing. So every other space is a fruit tree and then a red bud. So all these red buds will put out these beautiful pink flowers in the spring, and this whole berm is just a pink wonderland interspersed with fruit every other tree. And so we either have a nitrogen fixer or a native in between each of our fruit trees. This little citrus died back. A lot of this project, we got kind of free rein to experiment. Citrus is always challenging out here. So you can see that one's unsurprisingly got knocked back in the winter.
And you guys can't see it, but like I'm right on the edge of a very steep slope. Like if I jumped a couple feet out that way, I would be falling 10 feet to the ground. So the fact that we have built and are growing anything here is quite a feat, honestly. I mean, this is literally a cliff. And like when we first got out here, we couldn't even operate heavy equipment on it until we started to build up material and had to be very judicious and a little bit brave, to even take on this project in the first place. So I'm very impressed.
It was very spicy in the excavator.
We've planted these trees pretty close together. What was the idea between putting these red buds within like 5 feet of these fruit trees?
These red buds, pretty much all of our support species were planted on the southwest and northwest side of the tree to take some of the brunt force of the west sun in the summer. So that's why they were planted closer to actually provide that shade, and if they were further away, they just wouldn't be such a good shade species.
Yeah.
And then since all of these are nitrogen fixing, if this gets up into this peach tree, then we can just hack off specific branches, chop and drop it to the base of our fruit tree. We have a pomegranate over here, a peach over here, more pears and pomegranates over there. But so they were built in that agroforestry syntropic way of you plan to manage this over time, chopping and dropping it as it crawls into this species. This one's going to get larger over time, and these are going to be continually managed over time.
Yeah, that's one thing that we didn't mention yet about this, is that this is fully exposed to the west. So through the summer, especially as the sun is setting later in the day, everything's just getting blasted. So it makes sense to me why you guys wanted to create some shelter here on the west side of these trees. And it looks like we're about ready to chop and drop at least some of these cover crops here, but maybe we just leave them for shade through the summer. I mean, it's always a debate, right?
And this particular site too, since we're up on top of a hill, we get blasted with winds, and when storms come in, they come in very fast. So just having more wind breaks in the system so that these don't get pushed over was part of our sheltering idea as well. So when we got here, a handful of these large stones were just strewn about the property. So this was another one of those, problem is the solution. It was, what do we do with all these big rocks? We had this lovely, interesting, kind of sideways tilting oak tree right here. So we just put them in a nice oval to follow the shade of this tree over time. So we just observed where the shade was in the morning and the evening, and then we just built this to follow that shade and just pushed a couple of these rocks in place, threw down some decomposed granite, and these flagstones, and it's just become a beautiful little meeting spot to observe the whole system.
I love how this came out. I love how it's a semi-permeable surface. You can see there's some wildflowers growing in here, but it's not like overrun with stuff growing in between the cracks. It's got that nice accent. I love that you can see Lake Austin back here.
Lake Travis.
Lake Travis, my mistake, and how full or not full it is. And that's another thing, like we're being reminded of the water situation, and this client is choosing to do what they can to be a part of the solution. So
one of the unexpected benefits of these conservation terraces was they had a leak in their pool, and so they had to drain their entire pool, which is just uphill from us. And instead of just losing all those thousands of gallons of water, all of it went directly into these swales the day after we finished building them, and we were able to artificially fill and use all of that water that was just going to be wasted while they repaired their pool. So this is the highest swale, and then it spills down here, and this entire thing was just a cliff. You had to literally shimmy along a cliff to not fall off of it.
There's such a stark difference between this wild, tall, diverse landscape and what I see off in the distance, which is mostly just short grass lawns. And there's currently someone working hard to keep a landscape like that maintained with a leaf blower. So even the sound, like when we're out here, we're hearing the birds, we're seeing the lizards running around, and then just across the fence line, you hear the weed whackers and the leaf blowers going constantly, and the sprinklers, just to keep it looking the same and looking uniform and tidy.
And part of our maintenance is just a gentle, lovely walk with a grass knife to just lop off anything we need to chop and drop or just step on it, and that's the end of our maintenance, plus a biofertilizer spray. So it's a very different sensorial experience maintaining this system as opposed to these high input systems. So this is a perfect example of just how steep this property got. You know, as before we took all that material from where the rain tank was excavated, this, you had to kind of shimmy along here or else you would fall off of this cliffside. And so we were just able to take all that material, build up our berm, build this whole hillside, and now we have peach, nitrogen fixer, pomegranate, nitrogen fixer, pomegranate, fig, mulberry, and this entire space is now usable and manageable and wanderable.
It smells good too.
It smells delicious in here. As opposed to this was a complete no man's land. You were scaling or falling kind of 20 feet off the side of this.
I can see and I can imagine that when the rain tank was being dug out, that the excavated material that was coming out of there was mostly caliche and rock. But when I look at these berms that you guys built, it looks like dark, rich soil, and there's plenty of stuff growing. And this is only a couple seasons in. So I'm curious, what did you guys do to take this from caliche to that black, rich, beautiful, friable soil?
So one thing was we imported our classic blend, which includes biochar, basalt dust, humus oil. Incoming from the trailer is 50-year-old biochar. It comes from Flatonia, a lovely property that used to be a charcoal briquette making manufacturing plant. And all the dust that didn't fit into a little clever briquette got pushed into a field. So there's just acres of this stuff. Biochar that's just been inoculated by nature for the last 50 years. This gray stuff right here is basalt dust from Gonzales, Texas. The, what is it, Martin Marionette mine. And then this is our compost. So we'll mix all three of them together, and that's what we'll top these berms with. Sprayed with all of our biofertilizers, and then we just, either we would lay it, not on this berm because we built the whole thing, but on many of them we would lay that material in the swale, and then we would scrape that into our berm, so we would incorporate it into the entire berm. But on this one particularly, we just shaped it, sculpted it, and then we just laid about a ½ inch of that material right on top, and then mulched it, and then cover cropped on top of our system. And so a lot of this is just that inert biochar, but also just the deep root action and plant exudates from the cover crops that's just creating that deeper, richer, more aggregated topsoil.
Yeah, because this is definitely good soil down below a ½ inch. I mean, yeah, here we go. We're starting to get some of that caliche. But still, it's already penetrated down a good 4 or 5 inches and started to transform that caliche into deep, rich soil. So that's amazing, man. So this is our spillway here. I can see it's the low spot where we've chosen to let this water go once it's filled the swale entirely. Why did you choose this spot for the spillway? And is there any concern about that then heading down to the neighbors and causing some sort of negative interaction?
Yeah, we do have a few little rock berms on the back side of this to continue to slow it down. But before we started, there was a valley over here that was just, you know, as fast as the water could fall, it would go onto their property, and as fast as it would fall over here, it would go onto their property. So we chose to release the water on the natural, gentle ridge in that keyline strategy of moving the water away from the valleys towards the ridge so that they'll now naturally move back towards the valley on their own. And so this was the gentlest place to drop it off. So layers of biology, we planted all of our trees, nitrogen fixer, fruit tree, and then we overseeded it with a warm season cover crop blend just to get roots and root exudates into the system. And then wherever we had a fruit tree, we would throw in medicinals. So this guy right over here, this moringa, is one of those. So we just threw it down. And moringa is one of your highest nutrient dense foods out there. You know, it's fixing malnutrition in sub-Saharan Africa. It's a little spicy, but an unbelievable superfood. And you can just pull it off of there, enjoy it, throw it in your smoothie. And now we got our natural vitamins growing. This is one of my absolute favorites to plant between your door and your car so that your children, as they walk to your car every day, they just swipe off a branch, throw it in there, and there's their naturally homegrown multivitamin.
Those leaves actually taste really good. I've tried some of the seed of moringa and it's so bitter. This isn't bad.
Yeah. So the great thing about this system, you know, Mike's only 15 feet away from me, but I can barely see you. It's just this vast Eden wonderland of forest that you can just come through here and just kind of step on the tall grasses. They just become more mulch cover grown on site for everything else. But you have echinacea growing right here for your cold and flu season. You got peaches. Peach leaves are great for heat. So just take these, throw them in a mason jar, fill it with water, keep it in your fridge until you have that really hot day and sip on it. But also, we have tobacco growing here. It's just another nurse plant, an insectary. It's kind of known as the fourth sister in the three sisters, the corns, beans, squash, and tobacco. So we just threw seeds down and it's all sorting itself out and working really well. And as you can see, this is still an incredibly steep hillside. If you jump off,
Well, there goes Adam. We are hiring.
So that's what this entire site was, just a death trap. Everywhere you walked, it was marbles and you were falling down the hillside. And so there's still a 20-foot drop back here, but all this was that soil that got removed from the hole of the cistern and got replaced. So now we have this ecological wonderland where it was just an erosive, just desolate hillside before. One of the fun occurrences that happened after we built this system was this neighbor contacted this client and said, hey, I'm not sure what you've done on your side of the property, but now we no longer have rubble coming onto our side of the property after big rains. They used to have to go out with a cart, pick up rocks and anything that would wash off of this hillside into their pasture because they have livestock. And so now we've kept all the material, the water, and there's been a couple wet spots that have popped up on the low part of the property where springs are restarting. So now they're no longer getting rubble and mess, they're just getting a slow seep of irrigation free that seeps out of the hillside and supports their meadow.
What I think is something that really strikes me is how well you've gotten cover and revegetation on the backs of the berms on these really steep slopes. I'll climb up this in just a second to show how steep it is, but just curious, I think understandably you can get stuff to grow where it's more flat, but did you guys just seed that, or was there some special technique you guys used up here?
No, we just cast some of our mineral biochar basalt dust amendment on the back side of the berm and then just seeded it and left it pretty rough with rocks and sticks and everything, so there was purchase for those seeds to get into, and then just let the system take care of itself, and it did.
Yeah, I mean, this is incredible. I can see that there's been multiple seasons of growth here, cover crop, and now there's the natives coming in. And yeah, I pretty much have to like climb up this thing to make it. So that's amazing. Good job.
So this is our little jujube pocket just behind our leaky weir that takes this little steep hillside, all the drainage that comes through here. I love jujubes, but they have big thorns on them in addition to these wonderful little nutrient-dense apple-looking fruits. But I don't like them in a mixed system where you're gonna be bushwhacking through to manage because you get stabbed. So we put all the jujubes right in here with some nitrogen fixers, some Weesatch, and now it's really easy to find them, to harvest them, and to not get scraped everywhere you go and start cursing your perfect, beautiful syntropic system. And there's about 15 jujubes in here. So whenever these come in, a bunch of different varieties, it'll make it easy harvesting. It's a small fruit about the size of a cherry, so it's kind of hard to see if you don't know where your jujubes are.
This is gonna be a delicious thicket, and I see you also have some flame leaf sumac, you've got some Mexican buckeye, and so you've got some understory native trees as well. That's cool.
We do. One of the interesting questions I got from the client after we built this and it filled up with water the first time, he said, what's that sound that I hear? And it was the sound of frogs. And here they are on the tippy top of a hilltop. And now we basically just moved the whole riparian zone to the hillside. And so they're seeing dragonflies, hearing frogs every night. And it was just cool to see how we've shifted that ecosystem that's typically as far down in the valley as it can be right up to the top of the hilltop. And now all of those, those frogs are, we just saw a red-tailed hawk fly over with a squirrel in its mouth, saw a dragonfly with another insect in its mouth. So that entire ecology of predator-prey is all shifted to the top of the hill. So this is one of our lower berms. Our sorghum Sudan cover crop is up here. So one of the great things is as long as you know what you're looking at, you just kind of go through this system, step it down, and then sure enough, here's a peach tree right here. Like, oh, hey, little fella. He's doing great. He's been protected from the sun, from the wind. And then over here, we have another pear tree. And so occasionally we'll just either step or just grass cut some of this sorghum down. All of its root exudates are building better soil and it's protecting for all the reasons why this can be a harsh climate. And underneath one layer is another layer, the productive layer that we're trying to get to, that's just gonna be evolving and growing better and better over time. So it took us about 2.5 months with a small team of 2 to 3 people from start to finish to do this project, and we finished it 1 year ago, and all these trees were planted in 5-gallon pots. So all things considered, for a single year of growth, I'm super happy about this site.
What do you think you would like to see in a year when you come back to check on it? I know you're going to check on it more than that, but...
Yeah, I think just more dimensionality in the food forests. We're going to have, your ground cover, your creepers, your crawlers, your shrubs, and the trees are going to continue to get more vertical. Pecans and peaches and everything's just gonna get taller and higher. So just getting more of that vertical diversity in the system.
Yeah, and that'll create more shelter, and that'll just start to, then it still takes longer than 2 years to really start to get harvests, but we're getting there a little closer each year, right?
Yeah, and you know, we saw some pears over there almost ready to harvest in 1 year. So I mean, all things considered, I'm feeling pretty good about
Nice.
what we did here.
Yeah, it looks great, man.
All right, hey, thanks guys. Appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to learn more about what we do, how we do it, why we do it, you can hop over to our website. There's tons of good articles. You can join our newsletter. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. We'd love to see you there and answer your questions. Thanks again. Enjoy.